Oops. It's tough for me, but I think me sharing today is, for me, this is a part of the journey of the testimony I want to share with you today. And I believe that this sharing is part of my recovery and a part of the process that God has been carrying me through. So it would have been easier actually for me to come up here, as you know, and share a Bible lesson, a scripture, and teaching. But this is way harder because of difficult life has been for me the last year. But I know this morning I had to do this because I didn't ask if I need to share. I really just didn't want to. But I said, I have to do this to recover. And, so just bear with me as I share. It's pretty tough, but I know I have to do it. So, and I know what the result when we even finish. Yes. Yeah. So I'm going to be sharing a testimony this morning, starting from last year to now. Just where God has been taking me and showing me things and bringing me through a lot of stuff. So the worship this morning that we were listening to was all the songs that really were carrying me through the seasons, especially when it was really hard. These songs were what I was listening to and just repeating these songs over and over as we would have heard them. That God is the same God that He was then, that He is now. Be where I am today. So, yeah, those songs really helped carry me through. And so this journey started in November, where everything in my life basically everything changed. October, I was away. I went to do my Pennsylvania trip to recruit teams and, get support for ourselves, my family, to, continue our work at YWAM and to keep growing His kingdom through us and through YWAM Barbados. And everything was good, Of course, Linda she was pregnant a few months before. So the trip was exciting. We could have bought, baby stuff. And, it was enjoyable, honestly. I felt myself normal, sharing with people, highly motivated, if you would know me from before. And then came back home. It's a Friday, I think, started about YWAM on Monday. I came back a little earlier, but so I came back. I think I worked a week at YWAM. Everything was good. We had mission builders coming in from overseas. I was running the programs again and running schedules and flowing them well. And my health was good. I felt strong. I felt I was on the right path. And then November came and just flipped my world completely upside down. So Rob and Christine, who were the former directors of YWAM Barbados, were going on their furlough, where I had just been on. So they were traveling for December and January, and they had to go all the way back to Australia. So obviously they took a little more time in furlough. Normally we take a month, but they took 2 because of the length of travel. So the agreement was that while they were gone, I would be, as the acting base director, or I would be that role while they were away. And I felt fine with it, and we were to pray over. They were going to pray over me and hand spiritually, leadership down to me. And that morning, so they're doing that in the morning early, and then I was to take them to the airport to leave. And that morning I woke up to take them to the airport and get prayed over spiritually, hand the base over. And I woke up that morning, went outside, ready. Car had 2 flat tires, not just one. So Normally one tire, you can change it and move on, but I woke up that morning with two flat tires, no reason. I came home that night, everything was fine. My car had two flat tires. And I called and I wasn't, because of the time, and I was trying to figure out what to do. I couldn't get a plan, nobody's car that I knew had the same size tires. So time was moving and their flight was approaching. And I had to call and say, sorry, I can't make it. And someone else had to take him to the airport. I never was prayed over in a spiritual sense, hands laid on. It was just kind of over WhatsApp, and I never received that prayer really in person. And I just was the base director from then on. So the next day, this is where my world flipped, because that day I just dealt with the car. And then the next day, I was going to the airport to pick up a mission builder. I was arriving. Normal. Me and Linda were in the car, we were laughing, talking, and picked her up from the airport, driving back from the airport. And as soon as I got kind of past the Concorde plane, my body just was like a switch. Everything in my body just started to fail. And I just thought that. I didn't know what was going on, but I was fainting, felt like I was going to drop. And it was just a switch, nothing to explain. I didn't feel sick before. I didn't eat anything strange, I just switched. And then my body just started to shut down. And we were just talking in the car with the mission builder, explaining it. All of a sudden, I said, Linda, something isn't right. And I pulled over and I managed to just, I didn't know what to do, but then I just drove to Emerald City. We had to take it to the supermarket and I let them go in. And I was just in the car and my heart started to race. And I was becoming more and more fearful, extremely afraid, didn't know what was going on. And I thought maybe I needed to eat, like maybe I need to put some food inside or something. So I remember I was walking to Chapet from Emerald City, and if you know the little bridge that you walk across, the little waterway. And I remember as I walked across that bridge that I saw myself from above my body. And I almost thought I was dead. I thought I was gone. And I remember seeing myself just walking into Chapet, and I still got the food. And I came back and I ate it. And I think by the time I came on Chapet, I felt like, okay, I was back again. But that just freaked me out. Like, I didn't know what was going on. My only thing was to get home and go to bed. It was late, and I thought, let me just sleep, tomorrow will be better. And I managed to drive the person to Wyron, and as soon as I got home, I went in the shower, went to bed. And woke up the next morning, but nothing was better. Actually, everything seemed to be worse. And my mom called me at some point in the morning, not for just to ask something or just to check in or something. And I told her I was home. She said, well, why are you at work? Why am I? And I said, well, I'm not feeling well. And she said, well, you need to go see the doctor. And I said, yes. So I went to the 6 Roads clinic, and just feeling awful. Went in the doctor's office. They did blood work. And the lab takes 2 to 3 days for you can get results. So I had to struggle the next 2 or 3 days to even get some kind of clarity of why my body was feeling the way it was. And the doctor immediately, she checked everything that she could check besides the blood work. And she said, well, everything, she said she could see there's maybe some kind of infection or something like that because of my eye color, and I don't know what the doctor but the next day, I struggled because I didn't know what was going on. It was getting worse. And I started having these extreme heart palpitations. And I remember that would have been Wednesday, I think, by now. And my wife was still sleeping because she was obviously very pregnant at the time. And I was getting up early. Then I started to lose my sleep from that night. I didn't barely sleep. And I remember I was just outside on the couch and I was just praying. And I said, God, what is this pain? But it was getting worse. My fear was building. And I was so afraid that I literally thought that, yeah, I kept thinking I'm gonna die. This is it. My body was shutting down. I started to get numbness through my arm. And I've never experienced any of this before. So all this was new to me. So it was very frightening, of course. And I started to feel numbness in my arm to the point that I thought my arm was not even attached to me. Like, so I started to go like I was going crazy. It felt that way because I was thinking that my arm isn't here. And I know I can move it, but I just need to keep it. And I thought I was having this heart attack. All of a sudden, I'm thinking I'm having a heart attack because that's what I thought was going on. My chest was in pain, heart was racing, sweaty, and I felt like I was having a heart attack. So then I called the ambulance and I said, I don't know what's going on. And the lady said, well, what are you? I said, I think I'm having a heart attack. She said, how old are you? I said, I'm 28. And she said, you're not having a heart attack. And I was like, oh, you know, I'm not having a heart attack. And you're like on the phone. And she said, no, you're not having a heart attack. So, and she was right, but I was shocked at how she could say that. Just because I told her how old I was. She said she doesn't think I'm having a heart attack. She said the ambulances are busy, that it will be a long time, and we know Barbados. So I want to get ambulance for like 2 hours. And I remember I just dropped to the floor and I just gave up. I just said there's nothing I could do. So I just laid on the floor in pain. And I remember, I think eventually I called my mom to tell her I called the ambulance, and she was crying immediately. And she came from work and took me to Coverley and saw the doctor. And then I had my first ECG. Everything normal, no heart attack. And still hadn't got my result from the blood work. We still were not sure, but I still was feeling awful. And I was just getting more and more afraid, and more attacks were happening, were very strong, where I couldn't bear them. And then, so the next day, I couldn't sleep anymore. Between December and January, I was lucky if I got hours sleep. I was on like 20 minutes of sleep most nights. It was so hard, and that was making me even more sick. I just couldn't sleep. I would lie down, I would try and I'd try. I just could not get any sleep. And then the results finally came back from the blood work, and it said dengue. And I said, I've had dengue twice before. Unless this is the new dengue, I don't know, this cannot be dengue. Because I never threw up, never felt like I had fever. What I was feeling was not really dengue. Unless it was, I could be wrong. But to this day, I don't know what I had. And I'll get to where I am with that now. But anyways, so December, Christmas, supposed to be a time of family and friends. I pretty much shut everybody out. I didn't want, even my good friends, I didn't want them around, which was hard. My family, my church, I didn't go to YWAM for those 2 months, just sit. And I just shut everything up. I just was in this place of going crazy. And I remember I really felt like I was going crazy. I was in my house, and Linda was obviously at the time pregnant, so she was sleeping a lot in the mornings, and I had a lot of mornings myself. And I remember I would just walk like what I would say, a mad person up and down my house, just walking aimlessly. Like, I was telling myself that I was gone. Like, my mind was gone. I couldn't think. I thought that I was mental. I thought that I was gone. My mind was playing so much evil on me that, I started to think that that life wasn't real. I started to think that we're all robots. I mean, like some crazy stuff my mind put me in. I started, like, call it derealization, where I didn't think anything was real. I thought this was all fake. My mom just living this is all fake, and this can't be real. So like, it couldn't be, there's no human, like, but one thing that I realized looking back is that I never once questioned whether God existed or not. Because I've had experiences later where he was real. But what happened was, because I knew he was so real, I was so angry at God, because we sing these songs, we believe he's the healer. We see Jesus heal. I read every scripture on his healing immediately. And I said, I was so angry at God. I was just frustrated at him and shouting at him. I was saying, God, I know you exist. You know, I know so much you exist. I know you exist. Why are you allowing this? Why am I going through this? And I started telling God that he's torturing me, because it felt that way. It felt like it would be like tortured, really bad. And when my wife still wanted to, go out with friends, I would literally drop her and go home, because I couldn't deal with it. And some of you will know that, because you were around some of that, where I would drop and then go home, because I just couldn't be around people, because I was afraid that I would go into like some kind of mental state around people, But so that was a struggle. I didn't get sleep at all for pretty much December, and I just did not believe I had dengue at all. I just could not wrap my mind around this with dengue. And then eventually, I was recommended to a psychiatrist, went there, and I want to share this as my journey. This isn't, this is what God has taken me through. So I'm not putting out anybody else that's been through anxiety and depression. I'm not, this is just what God brought me through, the way I come through it. So, but I remember the psychiatrist, first thing, was to go on antidepressants. And I've been around some people that have been on it, and I've seen what it can do to people. It can do both good and bad, but I've seen what bad it can do, and when you're in a negative state, you focus on the worst, not the best. And that's what I was in. So I was just looking at all the bad things it can do, not the good things it can do. And she wanted me to go on antidepressant, but I was so heavily against it. But it came I remember one night I was so distraught. I didn't know what to do. I said, if this is the only way that I'm going to recover, I'm willing to try it. And I took one. And I remember feeling, when I took that thing, like a wall in my head go up. And then I felt like my emotions were hitting that wall and not allowing me to feel emotions. And I felt like I was in outer space, but I felt high, like delusional. And I didn't like it at all. I said, I don't know what is going on. I felt that this medicine was really controlling my mind, and I didn't like that. He said, I don't like that. And I couldn't do it again. I just couldn't. I said, I can't. If I'm going to get through this, it has to be another way. And then I just started looking at natural remedies. I started doing melatonin, and then I was researching lots of stuff. The main thing I wanted to get about was my sleep, because I thought if I could sleep, I could start to feel better. And that was the main thing that I wanted to get back, was sleep. And I focused so much on that I just started taking melatonin. I started taking something called tart cherry juice, and all these things to help me sleep. And what I found with natural medicine is you have to suffer with it before you get relief. That's why I think people like the normal medicine, because it gives instant relief, and then we get hooked to it. But some people do need it, and I'm not against that. But the natural stuff, I find you have to push through with it for a while. Because melatonin didn't work for me until a month and a half later, until it started to work. Because the natural stuff your body has to now change to it, and that takes time. But anyways, that helped me a lot. But I remember my turning point, I think. So I was having these panic attacks daily. Pretty much every day I was having a panic attack where I would lose control of my heart, my mind, and I would have them 2-3 times a day, just going into panic. And it just paralyzed me. It completely paralyzed me from doing anything. But I think the turning point for me was Linda being pregnant, because I knew I had a son coming. And that was for me like, I cannot live my life like this, not like a child coming. And I think through all this, I really give thanks to my wife, because she had to go through this while being pregnant for the first time, and had to not have her husband with her at all, because I wasn't there at all. And it was tough for us. I know it was very tough for her. Even to the point of the birth, I wasn't there mentally properly. I had really struggled to get that one. I think the turning point was in January when baby was getting close to the birth. I said, this cannot stay. This cannot stay. And I said, I'm willing to do whatever I need to do to get out of this. And for me, that was literally going to prayer, going in prayer, almost just not ceasing in prayer for the full day. And that's what it took for me to really, really start to see the breakthrough that I needed to see with prayer. And I mean, it was a struggle even for a long time while I was praying. And I said, I don't care how much this hurts. I don't care how much my heart is paralyzing me or the feelings in my body. Because I started in January going depression, because I was dealing with a lot of fear in December, anxiety, and then I went into depression in January, where I lost all hope. I didn't feel hopeful anymore. There's nothing worth living for. As I said, I think life is real. And I said there's no hope. So I went into depression. Nothing made sense to me. But as I said, when the baby was getting closer, I said, I have to get out. I have to get out. I had mentorship, like I have a friend in South Carolina who talked to me daily. See, Michelle King was praying for me a lot. And I know some of you were praying for me, and I thank you for that, because I couldn't have been where I am today without your prayers. There's no way. And I remember one time I lost my mind was so crazy that I remember a news article came over. So I started watching news. I couldn't even watch certain movies anymore. I remember we tried to watch a Marvel movie at home. I went into a panic attack just because of the action. I said, I couldn't do anything. I felt like I had to relearn everything. I couldn't drive. It took me, the first day I started driving again, I had to take I think it took me an hour, 5 attempts to get in the car. Just start it. I felt so afraid that it was just paralyzing. Even to, I think when December finished, I couldn't even go outside. It took me, again, a whole hour or more just to go outside and walk. Because I felt so hopeless. I had no energy. And then, as I said, I would walk. So one time I happened to see this news article. This is how the devil works. And it was about some girl that got knocked down in St. Philip, sometime in that area, in that time, January, February. And I remember my mind convinced that I did it. I was condemning myself that I hit some random person and killed somebody. And I thought that I was feeling guilty, like I was even more involved with it just because I read it. And my mind, the devil was trying to kill me, honestly. Well, that, one thing I'm thankful, because I know a lot of people end up there is suicidal, but I knew God existed, and I said, I'm not going that way. No, I'm not going to lie that thoughts came, because, birds fly around, but you don't let them nest. But the birds did fly around me and brought thoughts, but I knew that's a no, because I had the sun coming, and I knew Elliot was coming, and I knew that God existed. But thoughts did approach me, but I dismissed them fast. But yeah, I was feeling so guilty at someone else's crime. I mean, this is the level that I was going crazy. This is going on for days, just struggling. But as I said, I said, I can't stay here. This cannot happen. This can't happen. And I remember making the decision to just pray and read his word and pray back God's word to him. One of the scriptures that was Ephesians 4:6-7, about God guarding our hearts and our minds, and his peace will surpass all of our understanding. Do not be anxious or worried about anything. I kept praying that to God always. And one thing I learned through this process is to be stubborn in prayer. Do not stop praying until you get what you want. Yeah. That's what I learned. I had to. I said, I'm not going to stop praying until this happens. To this day, I said, I'm not stopping. Because I know God, you feel it. I know that's who you are, and you're the same God. And the journey you're taking me through is a journey that I'm learning a lot. I've learned so much. from this time for who I am today. I've become a much stronger person in my faith, like way stronger than I thought I was. And my prayer life has increased like so much. Yeah. I knew I had to push through. So yeah, so the time went on. I started to get more sleep a little bit, like 2-3 hours a night. For me, that was excellent. And I decided that I have to start back my life. And I remember going to YWAM the first time, as I said, 5 attempts to get any car. I drove to YWAM. I had to pull over like 3 times on the way there, just I was going into an attack, panic attack. And at that time, I've learned some tools of how to deal with it, breathing techniques and how to calm yourself down. But I was still afraid that we didn't know what was going on. I was still not sure it was dengue. I went to many doctors to the point that the insurance sent me a letter saying we've seen that you have gone past the average amount of annual visits. We recommend a different plan. I got a letter from the insurance because I was just going to doctors all the time, trying to figure out what was wrong with me. I think I spent over $2,000 in blood tests. Well, my family did, and I thank my granny and my mom for really being there and, taking care of those finances, and taking to the doctor. But yeah, every blood test normal. And then I had a CAT scan because I started to get these headaches, extreme headaches that would literally make me throw up. And what I've discovered now, it was from when you're afraid, you're tense. And I was so tense all the time that my muscles, I was tense for almost, 6 months, that my muscles are now learning to relax again. And I was getting these chronic, like really bad tension headaches because my muscles were so tense. And I had a CAT scan. I thought I had a tumor, of course, because your mind always sees the worst. I thought I had cancer. I had a tumor. CAT scan showed nothing. But I was still not convinced because I was like, there must be something. This cannot all be anxiety and depression. This cannot be all that. And I had up to last month an MRI, nothing, normal. And I'm thankful for those results because I was praying. So God, if it's something that serious, I don't know what to do. But at the same time, I was thankful that it wasn't. But then it came to the point where I had to accept that I'm dealing with anxiety and depression. And I found that from February, I realized that I can't shelter myself and not tell people. I had to tell, so I started telling people what I'm dealing with, and I started sharing more and more with people that this is what I'm going through, because I thought, because my focus was prayer. I said, the more people that know, the more people are praying. I said, I've got, if you're not hearing my prayers, I'm going to tell so much people that you got to hear one of them. Because I started telling everybody, every conversation, even strangers on the street. They would say, in the bank, how are you doing? And I would tell them, this is how I'm doing. And I need prayer. And people would say they're praying for me. And I kept asking people to pray. And I kept praying. And I remember one of the first things I had to start doing to get back to normal, I said, let me start exercising. And that was so hard because I had no energy. And when you exercise, your heart naturally picks up speed. So it was a trigger for me that every time I exercised, I felt I was going back to a panic attack. But I had to learn to face it and say, I'm just going to do it even if it hurts. And I did that. I remember the first time on my front road, it's not that long. All I could do was walk halfway and come back. And that was it, the first day. Second day, a little further the next day. This was 2 months, 3 months till I can actually run 5 laps up and down. And that was such a big compliment for me because we went from night and day to both sides. Being able to get 5 laps up and down the road and doing push-ups. I remember I couldn't do 1 push-up in December and January. I couldn't do 1. I would go down and I could not get up there. I was so weak, so tired. And now I was up to 30 push-ups, after 2 months. And it hurt. It did not, I'm not saying it was easy. I would do it and I would feel so much pain. I said, I'm just going to keep doing it. And I just had to put the pain aside. And that was probably very difficult. And I remember as I ran every day, I would pray out loud. I would just pray and shout to God and just quarrel with him almost and say, God, you have to heal, you have to heal, listen to these songs. And I'm repeating these songs, God, this is who you are, this is who you are. Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing this? You know, why are you not healing me immediately? Jesus healed immediately. Every person he touched was healed, you know. And I kept hearing God say, before this all happened, God was speaking to me. This was like years ago. I kept hearing the word prepare yourself, prepare yourself. That's what God kept telling me. And now, when this all happened, I kept hearing God say, hold on. And I kept trying so hard to do that, but it was so difficult to do that. But I remember one time I was running, and one of my breakthroughs was, I just woke up in a song. I didn't even know what I sang, but I just started singing it, and it felt such a release when I just sang that, whatever it was. And I felt like that was my first step of some form of breakthrough that I needed. And I was so thankful for that. And then as time went on, I started to slowly, you know, do things again. Like I started to go back to YWAM working. I was starting to operate a lot more again, going outside. I started to get more physical, but every day was a challenge. It was so hard to do it. It was really hard. But all I can say is God is there with us. And he was there with me through the whole thing. And still is, because I look back and I said, there's no way that me, Jack, could have got through that without having God and the support of family and friends praying with me. There's no way. I really thought I would have gone completely mental and crazy if God was not there, honestly. And I always thought spiritual. So this whole thing, I believe, this is my belief, was spiritual warfare. Because up to this day, I can't tell you. And the doctor I was going to, she said, Jack, maybe it's time you let go of trying to figure out what happened that day when you got sick and just move on. And I struggled with that because I wanted to know what was wrong with me. Why did that happen? And I had to agree with the doctor. I said, you know what, you're right. Maybe I don't need to figure out what happened. I don't need to figure out why I was sick that day or so sick for so long. And I had to just let that go. But I believe it was spiritual warfare because I believe when I stepped into leadership, the enemy just wanted to completely take me down. And he did I felt like he did for a while, but I thank God that he didn't keep me there. I was able to get here to this point where I can share because I thought I would never share again. Honestly, and my gift is teaching, and I never thought. I remember in January, I said, I'm done. There's no more teaching. I thought I was going to leave YWAM. I thought I was going to go, as I said, to my mental, and that was it. And I realized that the more I just put trust and faith in God and prayer, small steps of healing were coming. So I had to accept that my healing is not going to be this immediately miracle. It's still a miracle, but it's a recovery journey that I'm on. Because I do believe I'm healed, but the recovery is what takes time because our minds are such a unique place. And it teaches us to watch what we put in there because what we put in there to really stay there a couple of years later that we don't know. But yeah. So I remember as the baby was born, I still wasn't fully there. I had this thing where I was like, I want to be happy. I'm having a child. I just couldn't. I was like, I wanted to show joy. I wanted to be happy. This is my first child. But my emotions would not allow me to be happy. But in my mind, there's a battle. I know what I want, but it just cannot seem to happen. And we had a child, and when I first saw him, I cried, and of course, it was a very special moment for me. But I found that growing with the child and learning to rebuild that joy. Like every day I see him, it's a joy. And that joy is slowly coming back to me. But I still lost a lot of the joy I've had. I'm still recovering in that area of finding my joy and happiness again. Because I know that's what I want. And I know that's what God wants. But I'm just slowly in that place. And then 2 months ago, I realized that I maybe need to get like actual help, like therapy, because we tend as men not to think we need help, or we look at therapists as something like like a weakness we have. But I decided that that's the route I need to take. I didn't have the money, so I was telling the board of YWAM because they were trying to push, me to leave the base in this time, but I said I just not in a place to do that. Not on my own, because the way I was, I told them what was going on, and then they offered to pay for my therapy. So I've been seeing a therapist now for over a month, and that has really helped me a lot. She actually might be on the Zoom because she asked to be here, but her name is Kathy, and she's from the States. And she's helped me a lot with tools and stuff. But one thing that really helped me was actually she sent me from her church a preaching that her pastor did. And I remember he was sharing, God doesn't just want us to go through something, God wants us to get over it. And a lot of us, when we go through struggles, depression, anxiety situations, we just ask God to get us through. Why don't we ask him to get us over it as well? And that's something, because I was at a point where I said, let me just accept I'm going to live like this the rest of my life. I'm going to live in fear, I'm going to have these attacks, and I'm just going to carry on my life like this. This is just going to be the way it is. I have to learn to live with it, and that's called getting through it. But in the scripture he used was from Psalms, where it spoke about David, where it said he took David through an army and over a wall. And that was the scripture the pastor used, and it was like, I realized that I don't want to just get through this. I want to get over it. And I've been praying that continually, that God, you have to get me over this. I don't want to just be someone who gets through it and that says, this is what I'm going to live with. I need to get over this. And I'm believing for it. And I am doing everything I can to get there and pushing through everything I need to be in that place to get over it. And I want to say that to you all as well. If you're not just anxiety, depression, any situation in, don't just get through it. They say you get through it. You want to get over it. You want to conquer and be victorious. But that's the God we serve. God is victorious over everything. He doesn't just get us through it, he gets us over it as well. And one of the songs that I played was another breakthrough I had. This was at YWAM, I think sometime in May. It was I Speak Jesus. I was listening to that song a lot, especially that one, because it speaks about fear and anxiety in the song and breaking those strongholds. And I remember it was at YWAM, we had a community night, and I invited a lot of the worshipers from here and other places. There was a couple that were from the state sharing, and it was a good night. And as I was leaving, we had Elliot, and he was crying, he was hungry, we didn't have any more milk with us. So we put him in the car, and this lady, I don't know who she is, but this lady, she might be here actually, I didn't even know. Because I was so out of it that night, tired and this thing, but Cairo probably knows who she is, because I think he brought her. But I don't know who this lady is, but she doesn't know me, I don't think. But I just remember she came to me after and said she had a word for me. At that time, I was like, no, I need to go home. The baby's crying, put him in the car. And then she's like, she called everybody that was there, promised prayer over God. And then she told me I had a song that I wanted to sing over you. And it was the same I Speak to Jesus song that I was listening to for months. Wow. And she started to play it, and I just broke. And then she started to prophesy and pray over me. And she spoke everything that I was going through. She said, I see it's a mental battle and all this stuff. She was praying, and I don't even know her. And she prayed all of this that was so on point, and I felt that was another breakthrough moment where I was like, God is with me, He is hearing me. And that's my encouragement to everybody in every situation, that God is with you in the darkest of dark places. Because I feel like this was the darkest time of my life I've ever been. And I pray that it will be the last that I ever will be in. But God is so good that, since February, I have not had any panic attacks. I've had anxiety, I've had fear, but I have never had a panic attack again, because God has been so good to give me the strength. We sang a song that God has given us the authority in Jesus' name. And I had to take that authority and say, God, this is something that you have said, you have given us the authority. I believe that you are all powerful, and this is something I need to go through, and I need to overcome. And I would pray, and I would pray. I would, for the first time I went back to Waiwan, I think for the first 3 weeks, all I did was go there and go in the prayer room. I just prayed. I cried like crazy. Just on my knees in the prayer room, just praying and crying. Every day. Because I was stubborn and faith. I said, I think it's all about not leaving this prayer room. So I feel like I'm healed. I had to push. And and it's felt so disappointing when you leave and you don't feel the feeling. You have to trust that God is doing something and that He is there and He is healing. Because since, I think 2 months ago, I have seen a lot more breakthrough in my life where I've been able to teach in camps again. I've been able to go on outreach and share the gospel with others. I've been able to start my life again. I'm still dealing with stuff. I'm not gonna lie. I have not surfed in almost a year. And surfing was my sport. I have this fear in me about surfing. I don't know why. It's about in the water. I'm gonna feel like I'm gonna have an attack. And that was a struggle. That's still a struggle that I deal with. That I know I will overcome because I know that I've learned I have to face my fears. A lot of times we like to push our fears and just try and get through them and not have to deal with them. But I've actually now, even driving here this morning, I was dealing with some serious anxiety coming here. And I started to feel my heart, race, but not a panic attack, but just speed up. And I started saying, God, I give you thanks for this, because now I'm going to face this thing. I'm going to defeat it. I said, God, let it happen. I said, I don't care, because I said, I'm going to go up here and share. The only thing that's going to stop me is if I die. I don't care if I get shaky. I don't care if I cry. I don't care what happens. I said, I don't care if my heart is racing. I said, I'm going to do it. Yeah. And I think this is something that I've learned is getting me through, is that despite the pain, and I know some of you can relate how hard it is to do it when you have struggling with anxiety and depression. I know some of you are, because I've been in this church for 20 something years, and only when I went through this did I realize how many people deal with it. I realized that this is so unspoken, and that I remember I told Dave Gill one time out of anger at his house, like I said, I'm so upset with the church. And I'm sorry about that because that was wrong with me. But I remember telling Dave that I was so upset. I said, why have we never spoken about this? I said, why have I been in church for so long and never learned about it or known about it? And I realized that when I started telling people, I deal with it too. I've been through that. I've had situations. And I said, wow, that helped me so much. Yeah. To realize that other people are struggling and that this is real. The last thing I think I'm going to touch on is I have been in YWAM, I've been around many teachings, and I thought I knew, full well about spiritual warfare. And I always thought, from hearing the many teachings on spiritual warfare, that spiritual warfare is something that affects you externally. Like, your car breaks down, your finances are not good, your house catches on fire, something external affects you spiritually. I thought that's how spiritual works. It will affect you externally. I never once knew that spiritual warfare can be internal, where it affects your physical body. I never would have thought that the enemy was even capable to be able to do that. And I know the story of Job where God allowed that to happen, but at the same time, I was like, how could the enemy, God, you said that I am yours, that nothing can snatch me from your hand. How could something in my body happen? But then I realized this is just the flesh that's suffering. My spirit is what is on, and I have to move in the spirit. And I said, I don't care now if my flesh, I do kind of care. We have to take care of our body because it is a temple of Christ, and I do the best I can. I change my diet. I haven't drank alcohol or soft drinks since December. I'm on a very pure diet right now, and it's helped me significantly. I've lost quite a bit of weight, which is good. Where was I? Where was I? with the spiritual warfare. Yes, it's the spirit that I realize is what has to drive me and not my flesh. So I realize I've been on outreach at YWAM now almost every Thursday, and every Thursday I'm like, I can't do this, but I do it. And I realized when I'm done, I did it. You know, my body didn't shut down. Yeah, I had some fear, I had some racing, and even still sometimes my arms still feels numb, but I said, I came back and I did it. I'm still here, I'm still alive. And I said, I have to be strong in the spirit to get over it and get through it. You see, to me, it has to be God. And I just don't know how people who don't have the Lord get through it. I really don't. And I would say there's lots of good tools you can use out there to get through it. There are physical tools like breathing techniques and things that you could do like writing things down, and like the therapist have taught me, you know, even if I don't go surfing, write down the steps of doing it, and eventually your mind will, you know, there's things you could do like that too. And I am doing those things. But at the end of the day, it's God. And I'm so thankful for all of you. I'm thankful for my wife, for my family, to be here today and share this testimony that's still going on because I'm still recovering. But the level that I've come to today from where I was, I just look back and I always cry because I said, I honestly thought that I was gone mentally. I thought I was gone. I thought that my life was completely over. And I'm so thankful and look back and now I can relate with people that go through depression, anxiety, which I couldn't do before. Now I can really relate with people and share and help people get through things, because anxiety, depression is like an unseen sickness that you cannot just go and get medicine for. You know, it's something that is mental, and you have to walk with God and share it. I remember in my newsletter and I sent my newsletter to a lot of people, and this person that never responded and said, well, thank you. But I put, the more I share, the more I overcome. And she said that really spoke to her. And I had no idea that someone on my newsletter was giving them that, because they didn't say it, you know. But only when I said it were they able to come out and share, you know, that they're struggling with it and be able to pray with them. You know? But yeah, even though I feel more relief. So, I just encourage everybody here to trust God. Then asked me to do if I was doing a PowerPoint. I said, you know, if I was to do a PowerPoint today, every slide they say trust God. And I would just be clicking next slide, trust God, trust God. To me, that is the answer. Is every situation you're in, know that God is with you and that He will bring you through it, but He also wants to get you over it. And I think we just like to get through things. We need to learn to get over them so we can get on with our lives and go back to a place where we can serve God in a better, in a stronger place. And I think that's my encouragement, is to really trust God, no matter how dark it is, no matter how dark it is. Because we all go through some dark times. But God is with us. He's the same God. And the song that we played there is He's more than able to get us through. You know. So I encourage you to be stubborn in your faith. Be stubborn in your faith. Do not stop praying for what you're praying for. And get others praying with you. Don't hold it in. Share it. If you're going through a struggle, share it. Share it, share it, share it. Share it with people. I didn't share it with my friends for a long time. That hurt me, and I know it affected them. But when you share, it releases healing, it releases power. Yeah. And the last quote I would say is, you know, we all want to see miracles, but we never want to be the place to be in one. And we all pray for miracles. Let's see miracles. God, do miracles. But when it's for you to receive a miracle, because you know you have to go through suffering to get a miracle. You know, we pray for miracles, but then when God says, okay, I'm going to do a miracle in your life, and then we go, oh, I don't want that. And now I have to suffer. And you have to endure one of the words that it said. So, you know, we all want to see miracles, but we never want to be the person to receive it. We want to see it in other people's lives because we know the suffering it brings. But I'm just so thankful today to be here. And I thank you for giving me the opportunity to share. this with you. I hope it was an encouragement to you. I really do. I thank you as my family to keep praying with me and keep praying for me and my journey and my wife. You know, because I feel like I'm now starting to get myself, you know, back together. As well. I still have pains in my head and stuff, but I trust God through all this, that all of it will eventually be gone. And I'll be ready for the next battle. So, amen. Thank you.